Hey, before we get to the episode, I just want to let you know about an offer at mrse.co/leak. I'm Andrew Chapman, Director of Podcasting here at Maracy FM, and we've got an offer for you there for a free revenue leak checklist. That's right. If you run your own business, you can find out exactly where your business might be losing money, and you may not be aware of it. So again, go to mrse.co/leak. That's LEAK, and you can get all the info and that free checklist.
Maracy.
So controlled remote viewing is a written technique or methodology where you sit at a table with paper and pen, and you're literally going to describe a target that is probably pretty far removed from you in time and space. You're going to be totally blind to the target. You'll just be given a number. And if you're given any information at all, it's usually extremely neutral.
Hello, and welcome to Consciousness Explored, where we delve into the mysteries of the human experience and consciousness. I'm your host, Melissa Deal. In each episode, we'll be diving deep into the nature of consciousness, ways to expand our consciousness, and the impact that our understanding of consciousness has on the quality of our daily lives. On today's episode, I've invited Lori Williams. Lori is an accomplished author and professional controlled remote viewer, or CRV. She's an experienced instructor of CRV and an accomplished public speaker who has appeared on many popular radio and television shows and podcasts. With more than 2 decades of dedicated research and practice, Lori has become a leading figure in the field of remote viewing, guiding CEOs, celebrities, and everyday individuals on profound journeys of consciousness exploration. Her work includes assisting law enforcement in missing persons cases, conducting professional sessions for corporations, working on archaeological mysteries, and a broad range of other topics. I cannot wait to talk with her today. We'll be right back with Lori's story.
When I was a little girl, probably somewhere between 18 months and 2 years old, something happened. The story isn't quite clear. I've heard a few versions of it, but the long story of it is that I guess I had like a near-death experience. I ended up literally dying and they had to revive me. And I think that might have shaped things. Research shows that children who have had near-death experiences tend to be a little different than the norm. I've always been the odd man out, having experiences of psychokinesis where things move around me unaided. Things will fly through the room or chairs will tip over onto their sides. Things just move on their own. And we used to think there were always ghosts around us, but then we figured out that it's probably not ghosts. It's probably just something having to do with my own kinetic energy that causes that. Out-of-body experiences were always a common thing in my life, as well as, seeing spirits, having precognitive dreams that came true, and just having clear cognizance where you just know stuff and you don't know how you know it. So that's always been a feature of my youth and my continued life. I was born in Washington State, in Spokane, Washington, and my dad at that time was an ad man. My mom was a 1950s housewife. She eventually started working with my dad when he bought into a series of radio stations that were located in Montana and North Dakota. So when I was about 6 months old, we started moving, and moving became a theme for the rest of my life because we ended up moving about every 3 years as my dad kept climbing the corporate ladder, getting better jobs, higher paying jobs. So he went from being an ad man to being a part owner in radio stations and being a disc jockey and that sort of thing. And then eventually he decided to go back to school, get his PhD at Northwestern. So we lived in Skokie, Illinois for a while. And then we moved on to Athens, Ohio. And then from Athens, Ohio, we ended up in Knoxville, Tennessee, where my mom put her foot down in 1971 and said, "This is it, I'm not moving anymore." And by that time, I was just turning 14. My biggest challenges were that my dad was an alcoholic, and my mother had bipolar disorder that was untreated. I was the youngest child in the family, and So a big challenge for me was I was the peacemaker. I had 2 older sisters, and whenever my mother would fly into rages or have, one of her episodes, they would kind of send me in there to get her in a good mood. It was like trying to walk into the lion's den. I was terrified. My dad was agnostic, and so he never talked about God. My mom had been devout Catholic as a child and then was excommunicated when she got divorced after 6 months of marriage to her first husband, and that soured her on the Catholic Church. So what was really funny, they told me that when John F. Kennedy was assassinated, my mother said to my dad, "We have to go light a candle for John F. Kennedy." So they took me to this massive cathedral in Chicago, and we walked in, and I said in a very loud voice, "Hey, who's that guy up there hanging on the cross?" And they were mortified as everyone gasped and turned around. That all these people were praying and all these nuns were there, and everyone was horrified. And my dad said quietly, "I think we need to start teaching her something about religion." I got a very scant religious upbringing until I met a bunch of Jesus people in a park right after I turned 14 years old. And I had a really profound experience, a religious experience, I guess. I prefer to say that it was a spiritual experience, though, rather than religious, because I associate religion with a lot of negative things. But anyway, I ended up being very involved with this group from that time until I was 34, when I dissociated myself with that group.